the two traditions of Advaita Vedanta and Buddhism, especially in the yogic sense of Buddhism,
Hmm.
they share they share the emphasis of non-duality.
Hmm.
There is a lot of overlap, and for me, I was part of a Vedanta community. It's more of a Western Vedanta community in the Bay Area, about 23 or 25 years ago, um, with Gangaji and a few others in that community. And uh, I was really drawn to the non-duality of Advaita Vedanta and this
Yeah.
notion that what we experience in life is sort of this divine play of illusory sort of images that we are tasked with sort of seeing clearly through, so that our view of reality is imbued with the divine light of Brahman,
Hmm.
in largely Atman, for clarity, for wisdom. Um, it's not That's not so different from some of the Buddhist views
Hmm.
around
Hmm.
projections of mind and delusion
I,
um, of the
in fact,
world.
yes, I was thinking specifically of the Dzogchen teachings,
Hmm.
uh,
Yeah.
which, in my taking, fundamentally are saying that awareness is the ground of being, and
Yes.
all that
Hmm.
we observe with our senses is no more than uh, uh, modulations of this fundamental awareness. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Much
okay.
like the Yoga Sutras tell us, the second, I think it's the second Yoga Sutra, that
Uh-huh.
yoga is really the cultivation of controlling the fluctuations of mind or of consciousness.
I'm sorry.
There
Say that
is there
again.
is a s-
Say that again. There
yeah,
was I got an interruption here, but uh,
uh-huh.
you said
Yeah, that
the
even
second of the Yoga Sutras.
yeah, I think it's Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha, which is
Uh-huh.
Swami. I hope I said that properly, but it's that yoga is the restraining or the pacification of the fluctuations of consciousness in the mind.
Uh-huh.
And so my view is that at the very pinnacle of practice, regardless of what the relative forms of meditation look like or
Yeah.
of the theologies,
Yeah.
um, is you have these two parallel qualities in Buddhism, in Mahayana Buddhism, called emptiness, which
Uh-huh.
is a very poor translation of shunyata.
Of
Largely, it
Shunyata.
is
Yeah.
profound spaciousness. It's not
Yeah. Yeah.
absence. It's an
Yeah.
absence of the causes and conditions, but it is this utterly luminous. Well, it's the light of Amitabha, largely.
Mm-hmm.
That's a form anyway. It's a relative
Mm-hmm.
form of describing this quality
Mm-hmm.
of brightness, which is very similar to the acognitive form of samadhi
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
in yoga practice
Mm-hmm.
and in meditation, where I think it's called asamprajñata samadhi.
Mm-hmm.
That is cognitive, or rather, samadhi absorption without cognition, which is very much
Mm-hmm.
alike with the notion of the Buddhist view of shunyata. And so,
Mm-hmm.
at that point of practice, and it's no different than the Sufi view
Mm-hmm.
of al
Mm-hmm.
fana, which is a dissolution of the self into Allah, into the great, the great being of God. And
Mm-hmm.
so the
Mm-hmm.
theological difference between Vedanta and Buddhism is fairly negligible in many
Mm-hmm.
ways, because the
Mm-hmm.
Buddha never
Mm-hmm.
said there's no such thing as God.
Mm-hmm.
He
Mm-hmm.
also never said there was. His
Mm-hmm.
concern was with our own kind of progress on a path. When he was
Mm-hmm.
asked, I think there's a sutra when he was asked, "Is there God?" It would depend on who was asking the question. If
Mm-hmm.
a deep, faithful believer who thought he or she knew everything about God, he would say, "No, there isn't." If an atheist asked him, he would say, "Yes, there is." Now, was he being a wise guy, or was he trying to be skillful in responding? He was trying to
Yeah.
get people to see that whatever you conceptualize the divine to
Yeah.
be,
Yeah.
it's going to be
Yeah.
very, very limited. It's going to be
Yeah.
wrong.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
And so the
It.
only path is
Yeah.
through mindfulness and through
Yeah.
cultivating a direct experience like what we did today, suchness, just
Yeah.
immediacy of the experience, and that's an ineffable quality. You can't put that into a box.
I think, Chris, there's also some relationship between shunyata and what in Christianity is called apophasis or apophatic
Yes,
mysticism.
apophatic. Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Same. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
which
Yeah.
is kind of cool. And
Saint John of
I
Saint
see that
John of the
Swami.
Cross, Saint John of the Cross referred to as nada, right? Nada,
Ah,
which in Spanish
nothing, which is nothing.
literally means nothing, right? No thing. Yeah, yeah. It's fascinating.
Yes, yeah, that's a great question, and I see Swami is visible to us here. Welcome, Swami. Thank you for joining us. And do you have anything to add as a master of sort of the Vedanta
No,
side of
I'm not
things?
a master. In fact, I'm taking Chris's class, his
Ah,
Buddhist chaplaincy class. It's
oh,
a wonderful professor at Harvard.
yeah.
But the question Kenneth is asking is something I think that we in the Vedanta tradition we see. Are there parallels in between Buddhism and Vedanta? And that was a question I actually was asking Chris when I was first in his class, because
Uh-huh.
uh, is the experience, meaning that someone who practices the path of Buddhism and someone who practices the path of Vedanta will the practices may differ, but
Uh-huh.
ultimately is the nature of the experience the same? That's
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
question
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
comes up. And
Mhm.
maybe I can ask you, phrase it like this, Chris, is that and this, I think I've asked you this before, but maybe you can clarify this. In the concept, there's a way of looking at, is it half empty or half full?
Mm-hmm.
So in Vedanta, the emphasis is always on fullness, that it
Mm-hmm.
is,
Mhm.
that Brahman is complete, it's full, there's
Mm-hmm.
Purna means it's full of what? So we'd say full of consciousness. And then I always wonder in
Mhm.
Buddhism, when they talk about emptiness, is it emptiness regarding that it's empty of matter? It's empty of content. I mean, as what material matter. So when we refer to emptiness, it's emptiness of phenomena, of matter. Can we reconcile it like this? Is that, I mean,
Mhm.
are they both, are
Yes,
they
we
both
can.
the same nature of ultimate reality is the question.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well said.
Yeah.
Thank you. And
Yeah.
I agree. In fact, this is one reason why the word emptiness for shunyata is a very poor translation,
Yeah.
because emptiness almost presumes a vacuum,
Yeah.
which isn't possible. There is something, there is a fullness in that spaciousness. In fact, it's more shunyata is more closely, I think, aligned with uh, profound openness, profound
Yeah.
spaciousness,
Yeah.
which means
Yeah.
there's not a whole lot in there to obscure the clarity.
Yeah.
That's what
I've
it's really about.
I've heard it also described as non-conceptual, completely non-conceptual, empty of
That,
concept.
that's one part of it, but it's not
Yeah.
a full rendering of the
Uh-huh.
experience,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
because it is also, yes, it is non-conceptual, and yet there is also it is also it comes with the other qualities too of being
Mm-hmm.
open and
Mm-hmm.
luminous. In fact,
Mm-hmm.
In
Mm-hmm.
Dzogchen, as you mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
it's a union of emptiness and luminosity, that the two are
Mm-hmm.
not separate.
Yeah. Yeah.
And here, I would say, if we substitute the word profound openness and spaciousness with luminosity, that's more accurate
Mm-hmm.
from an
Mm-hmm.
experiential standpoint.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah.
But emptiness throws people, and non-self throws
Yeah.
people,
Yeah.
especially nihilists. They love it. They flock to
Yeah.
Buddhism thinking
Yeah.
that everything is just made up,
Yeah.
and that really there is no inherent self at all.
Yeah.
And that's not what it's saying.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
existentially frightening. Why would anybody want to practice something that is that existentially vacant of
Yeah. Yeah.
experience?
Yeah.
It isn't. That's
Yeah.
not what the Buddha meant.
Yeah.